Ruffles are one of those little accents that never goes out of style, and they're really, really easy to crochet. So in this video, I want to show you how to add ruffles to pretty much any project, as long as you have a nice base of stitches to work with. And you don't have to be a pro either. This is a super simple technique. Basic skills is all you need to add a ruffle to your projects. Now you can use pretty much any yarn you want to add ruffles to your project. Within a couple of constraints, I would say use the same weight that you have in your project, because you just won't have a sturdy enough foundation for those ruffles if they're really, really bulky. This yarn recommends starting with a 5.5mm hook. I'm going to be a little bit rebellious and use a 5mm hook instead, because I want the stitches to be a little bit tighter, and that way they'll stand up a little bit better. It gives the ruffle a better shape. So you can add ruffles to projects that are worked in the round, and you can add them to projects like this that are worked flat back and forth. When you're working on a project that's flat like this, just pick whichever edge you want to start with and fasten on around any of your edge stitches. So if that happens to be a chain from where you turned, that's fine. If it ends up being a double crochet from the previous row, that's fine too. Our chain 3 will count as 1 double crochet, and then just add 4 more double crochets around the same stitch. So we have 5 there. Now the sides are pretty easy because we're working around a stitch, but the little spaces in between, we got to get a little bit creative. Look at your next row from where you've started your double crochets. The space between them is where you'll add 3 double crochets to keep going with your ruffle. So it looks something like this, and then we need to crochet down the next double crochet over. And same thing, you'll work 5 double crochets just around the whole stitch. Now, just like we did before, where we added those 3 double crochets in kind of a weird spot between the stitches, we'll do that again, but this time it'll be on the bottom edge, because, you know, we're crocheting up and down, sort of zigzagging to create the ruffles. So we need to find the space between the double crochet where we just worked our stitches and the next one over. So right around in here, we'll make 3 double crochets. And you know, this isn't an exact science, it's more of a guideline. So you can take what you're seeing here and apply it to your project in whatever way works best for you. So we've got those 3, we'll rotate again. Find the next double crochet and make 5 more. If you want your ruffle to be really, really ruffly, keep going as we've been doing here, where you're adding your stitches on the very next double crochet over in your base. But if you want it to be a little more spread out and have a little bit more room, you'll leave a double crochet in between. So let's see what that would look like. I'm just going to switch right in the middle here. So in that case, if I wanted to skip this double crochet and work down on the next one, I'll place my 3 up at the top between these 2 stitches. Whoops, we're double crocheting. There we go. Skip that one, work your 5 double crochets around the next stitch over. Rotate everything again. So this time we're skipping this double crochet and we're working on this one, so we'll add our 3 between the 2 stitches. That's the skipped one. This is the one where we're working our 5 double crochets. As long as you're consistent in where you place your stitches as you're working your ruffles in your project, that's all that matters, because it'll look consistent throughout your project. For a double crochet base of stitches like we have here, this is a tried and true great way of adding ruffles, but it's by far not the only way or the right way to add ruffles to your project. I'd say experiment and have fun with it. So you can kind of see the difference here where we didn't skip a stitch, the ruffle is just a little bit tighter, a little more ruffly, and where we did skip the double crochet between, it's a little bit wavy. Now depending on which type of base, like the base stitches that you're working on, you might have to modify or adjust the stitch and the number of stitches in the ruffle. So for a double crochet, 5 down the stitch and 3 in between on either side works really well. But let's say you have a foundation of half double crochet stitches that you're adding ruffles to. Well, 5 will probably be too much. You might have to play around with it and see what looks best for your project. I would say I would start with maybe 3 stitches on the side, or maybe 4 would probably work, and maybe 2 in between, and see how that looks. Now I haven't tried adding this to a base of single crochet stitches, and I want to say that that probably won't work, just because the stitches don't have enough height to them, and there's not really enough space between the stitches to work more stitches, if that makes sense. But that's not to say it can't be done. I haven't tried it before, but who knows? If you've tried it and it works, let me know in the comments, because, you know, I might have to give that a try. When you look at the other side, it looks completely and totally different, and that might not be what you want to see in your project. So just think about that when you're adding them to like a scarf, for example. I maybe wouldn't do that because in a lot of cases you see both sides of the scarf, but for the shawl, for a blanket, for a pillow, generally speaking, in those types of projects, you really just see and focus on one side of the project. But something to keep in mind, something to play around with and experiment with as you're adding these to your project. Okay, so at the end of the row, you might have to make things up as you go, depending on how many stitches you have in your row, if you're skipping a stitch between parts of the ruffle. So this one worked out so that I skipped this one, worked over these, and I have 1 left over. I went ahead and crocheted 3 in between, and I could technically leave things there, and it looks pretty okay. But I think to make it look a little bit more finished, I'm going to go ahead and double crochet 5 here on the last stitch. But, you know, play around with it. Don't get caught up on there being a right way or a wrong way. The right way is what looks good to you. I like to fasten off after I finish a row of ruffles. This goes for working in the round as well as working in a flat piece like this. If you are crocheting ruffles on a round for like a hat or like my mermaid tail patterns, for example, the way that you finish your row or your round of ruffles is just to join with a slip stitch to your chain 3 from the very beginning of the round. It should be right in the same place, and it's just as simple as that. So to add the next row of ruffles, I like to skip a row in between, and that just gives it a little bit more space. It actually makes it possible to work these stitches in between. So I'm skipping this one, and I will fasten on here. And all of this is the same. You could technically offset them if you like and not do them in the exact same place so the ruffle sits and lays a little bit different. But I like to just keep it the same. Plain and simple and easy. But if you're in the mood to experiment, you could definitely do so by just starting in a slightly different place and see if it works for your project. I'm working with double crochet stitches again. I really like the way or the height that the double crochet brings to a ruffle, but it's not the only stitch that you could do. You can experiment with a half double crochet if you want your ruffles to be not quite so tall. and ruffly as these ones. You could even try a single crochet and see if that works. I haven't personally done that, but if you're wanting a real short ruffle, try a single crochet. See if that works. If you want a really long one, try a treble crochet. So that's one quick and easy way of adding ruffles to your project. I'm sure this isn't the only way you could go about doing it, but my goal here was to give you an idea so that you can run with it and add these cute little ruffles to your project. B.Hooked.com is our shop for all of our PDF patterns. We have some PDF pattern bundling options with some discounts when you order multiple patterns. We have some t-shirts if you're into that sort of thing. And one of the new things that we added to the shop here recently is printable tags, cards, and bands. The cards here are one of my favorites because you can add a personalized message. Each card has a cute little design printed on the front, and on the back you have a space to add your care instructions and your fiber content. And the best part is the inside is left completely blank, so you can write your custom message with your gift. The tags also have the fiber content and care instructions, so you can still add that information to your gift. We have several different designs to choose from, as well as some bands, which are great for adding around your hats, your socks, your baby blankets, your scarves. So check those out in my shop if that's something that might interest you. Thank you so much for the support there. Thank you so much for watching. Happy hooking, and I'll see you in the next one.